Hey guys, so before you get too much further into working on your human behavior research paper, I wanted to take you through the model example paper and just explain what the expectations are and point out some of the things I want to make sure that you're paying attention to as you continue writing. So first of all, here you have your cover page, and this is something that is very specific to APA style. You've probably noticed that in a lot of your MLA style papers for your English class, papers we've done before in ELD, you're not asked to write a cover page. In fact, we usually, as English teachers, discourage it because it takes up extra paper. But since this is an APA style research paper, you are required to have this cover page where just these few important things just sit by themselves on the page. So you have the title of your paper, you have your name, and then you have the name of your high school. And this is all centered. You'll also notice that different from MLA format, up here you have something called the running head, which is just kind of a shortened version of your title. See, my title is A Study on Discrimination, Perspectives of ELD Students in One High School. My running head is just ELD Students. And then up here in the upper right-hand corner, much like in MLA format, you have your page number, but you don't put your last name like you do in MLA format. All right? So moving on to the actual body of the paper, you've already written a couple sections. The first section is your background, and some important features of the background are that it lays out what research or study has already been done in the field of psychology, or in our case, just in writing in general. What do people already know about the area you're studying? So the area I'm studying in my example paper was, again, how ELD students feel, how they're treated in high schools. Yours will be either advertising, social groups, or authority. Right. So in that background section, you should be sharing some quotes that you found in 3 articles and basically just laying the groundwork for kind of what do people already know about ads? What do people already know about social groups? And you get to decide what you want to share about that. For example, one of my articles shares that their struggles with others' understandings of ELD students permeates the way they act around others and see themselves. So I'm just kind of giving bits of information about how ELD students feel. You'd be giving bits of information with quotes about how people have reacted to ads or authority in some of the articles you've read. So this first section has 2 paragraphs, essentially, the big one that delivers your quotes, and then the second smaller one that basically just delivers your research question. Your research question should be the last thing that appears in your background. To what extent do ELD students at Sunnyside High School overcome negative judgment from their peers who are fluent English speakers? All right. So the next section is the methodology. This one is arguably the easiest of all the sections you're writing because it's going to look pretty similar in all of your papers. You just have to change some little details. It basically just shares how did you conduct your interviews, who did you talk to, where did you do them, in what format did you do them. In looking through your drafts so far, I've noticed that a lot of you have included, because of the COVID-19 situation, all interviews were conducted via email or via voice chat. That's great. Having that context there about when was this research paper done is perfect. All right. So pretty straightforward. I won't spend too much time talking about that one. Follow the example and it'll give you everything you need. The next section is the findings. Oh, and one thing I should mention, all these sections we've gone through so far should not contain any of your opinion at all. So really try to resist saying, oh, this was really cool, or this was really shocking, or, you know, very personal things like that. Once you get to the next 2 sections, which you guys will be writing or assigned to write after spring break, that's where you get to bring your impressions of what you learned in. All right, so moving on to findings, again, still no opinion. You're just revealing what you discovered in your interviews. So this needs to include both numerical data, so numbers, as well as some narrative data, which is a quote. At least one quote. This can be in this format right here called a block quote, where it's indented if it's a big quote. And just because my model has a block quote doesn't necessarily mean you have to use a block quote. But sometimes if you want to include a larger quote, check APA style to see how many lines or words is required for a block quote. You do indent it like this, and then you get to include a giant quote like this. If it's just one sentence where a student is saying, oh yeah, I really feel like I've never been affected by ads in my life. They're just not that impressive to me. That's a short quote, and you don't have to use a block quote. You can just have it quoted in your paragraph, just like you would for an essay for your English class. Okay? So again, in your findings, you're looking for a balance of numbers like this. 90% felt that their teachers were supportive, and also at least one quote where you have a student or just an interviewee saying something about what the questions that you asked them. Right? So the sections you'll be moving into next week are the analysis and implications. And in the analysis section, you get to analyze, as the name suggests, what your findings revealed. And the tricky or challenging part about this section is you need to make connections between what you found in your interviews and the articles you mentioned in your background. So you can see that I'm doing this here. They use a variety of strategies to gain social acceptance. This finding agrees with Anthony and Chang's findings that many ELD students. So you're trying to make connections between what you found going out into the Lynbrook community, like if you interviewed 15 students and they all said that they have purchased something because they saw an advertisement, and then you read Ad Power, you would make that connection. Just like the author of Ad Power said, ads are very powerful, Lynbrook students also felt that ads were very powerful and influential in their life. So you're making those connections. That's what you're doing in the analysis. You're saying, did your interviews agree with or disagree with the research that was already out there? And don't try to force it and make it agree if it didn't. Don't try to like pretend like, oh, even though 8 out of 10 students said that they didn't follow an authority figure's influence, but because 2 said that they did, it agrees with. It's okay if they disagree. It's actually kind of cool if you get proven wrong. If you went into this thing thinking that everybody was going to say, oh yeah, I'll do anything that a teacher tells me, and all of your interviewees said, you know, I actually don't listen to authority very much, that's kind of a shocking finding. And in your analysis section, you can say the results of these interviews were very shocking and proved the existing research wrong. That's kind of cool to read. I actually kind of like reading those. So don't feel like your interviews have to match your articles. Okay, that's an important point I want to mention. All right, last section is the implications. And this section comes from the word imply. And what the word imply means is, what are the next steps? What does this suggest? Suggest is sort of a synonym for imply. What does this suggest that should be done because of what you've discovered? So if you found that teenagers are very attracted by fast food advertisements, but they also said that this is making them overweight and feel unhealthy, the implication is that fast food advertisers shouldn't be advertising unhealthy food to teenagers. Maybe the implication is that parents shouldn't be letting their children watch TV shows or read magazines that advertise unhealthy food. So what does it imply? What should be done with this information? If you read my implications section, I basically said that because some ELD students in this made-up study that me and the other ELD3 teachers wrote, because some ELD students said that they felt discriminated against, teachers and administration should really work hard to make the school a more healthy environment for ELD students. That was what my study implied. Okay? So that's it for the body of the paper. And just scrolling down, I want to point out 2 more sections that you need to add. One is your references page, and this is basically what's called like a bibliography or a works cited in other papers. If you've ever done any other kind of papers where you had to include research, it's a list of your sources. So you'll have 3 sources most likely, and you cite them using this bibliographic format. All right, and I included a note. I sent you guys a school loop email about how to do that, and I actually did the citation on a lot of the ones we read in class for you. So if you used ones from class, you've already got that there. So please include your reference page. You organize these alphabetically by the name of the author. So Anthony Parker Stark. APS, alphabetical order. And the last page, if you keep scrolling, is literally just a copy and paste of your interview questions. So just put them in there. It's a reference for anybody reading your paper. It's called Appendix A, and yours can just say interview protocol for study on advertising, interview protocol for study on authority. And you just copy and paste your research questions right there, just your questions. Please don't copy and paste all the interview data of what your interviewees said. I don't need to see that. You're deciding what quotes and what data you want to include from your interviews. I don't need to see all those notes. Those notes can be filed away in your Google Docs or your notebook or wherever you put them. Just the questions are here for reference. All right. So hopefully you guys are feeling okay about the research paper. And from what I've seen, from what you've shared with me, you're making really great progress. Please email me if you have any questions, and let me know what ways I can support you. All right. Take care, guys.